committed activists in the struggle against child labor, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. My name is Tim Ryan. I'm the Asia Director of the Solidarity Center, the International Technical Assistance Organization of the AFL-CIO, and a member of the Global March Governing Board. I would really very pleased to welcome you all to Washington from all of the different countries that you've come from, and guests from here in the United States, to be part of this International Conference on Child Labor in Agriculture. I think this is the first conference of its kind, and I think we expect a vigorous and in-depth examination of the issues of child labor in agriculture. We all hope that this conference will lead to practical ideas and outcomes. So I think we're looking forward to all working together and bringing together all the knowledge and experience that comes from all of the different countries of the world that are represented here today. We have some special guest speakers and dignitaries this morning, which we are very honored to have here. And in order to introduce our chief guest and other dignitaries, I would like to turn the podium over to Chairperson of the Global March, Mr. Kailash Satyarthi.
Thank you, Tim. This time I'm not going to give my speech that I will do later. But now I am asked to introduce Senator Harkin. This is very, very difficult for me. He is the tallest statesman, the loudest voice, and the foremost champion in the fight against child labor in the world. We cannot imagine without him whether we have reached to this stage of decline of child labor. He is the longest serving Democrat senator from Iowa, and in fact he had made history in 2006 when he was elected 5th time from Iowa. So you can understand that on one hand he is leading the global issues and the cause of most vulnerable children, but on the other hand how popular he is in his own constituency and country. You can find thousands of things about him. He is the author of many of the legislations and protocols and treaties. He had done the pioneering work on the issue of carpet children in South Asia. He is the co-author of Harkin Angel Protocol on the issue of children working in Ivory Coast, Ghana, and worldwide in cocoa beans. And so many things could be attributed to him. You can find thousands of the things on websites. But allow me to tell you the other aspect of his personality. When you talk of a politician, when you talk of a senator or parliament member, you think he may be good or bad in bringing good legislations and raising the voices and concern. But the other side of his personality is a great human being. I owe a lot for him, of him. He has been pivotal in saving my life at least 2 or 3 times when I was badly attacked by the mafias while rescuing slave children in India, in my country. The last time when I was attacked, me and my son was lying on the streets and we were hospitalized by the bypassers. Some of the first phone calls I got when we were still in hospital was from Senator Harkin. And he was very concerned. He did every possible thing to save. He was sitting here and I was in India in a remote village, but he called me up. And not only that, when the mafia people have threatened my children, my daughter and my son, he called up and he said that, why don't they come and stay with me in Iowa? My son declined, but my daughter somehow agreed. And actually he and someone who is sitting here made her agree to stay in Iowa and study in the University of Iowa. Finally, she is back home after completion of her undergraduation. It's a personal story, but it brings a different aspect of his life. But the person whom I mentioned, who had helped in doing all this and many more things globally, when we talk of the fight against child labor, it would not be inappropriate to say that it was not possible also without Rosemary. Rosemary is also sitting here. So thank you, Tom, for being with us. In fact, 3 months ago, when I met him and I invited him for this conference and told everything about the conference, he was so excited. He told his scheduler that, oh, I want to be there for all 3 days. So everybody was shocked that how bell is ringing, so I should finish. Sorry. So I will keep on talking of Senator Harkin, but so he agreed to come here, but thanks to him that he is opening this important conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kailash, for those very kind words. My distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, 2 members of the Global March who are here from, I guess, almost 50 nations, welcome to Washington on one of our cooler days this summer. And I'm sorry for the heat, but that's such as life here. Very special greeting, of course, to Kailash Satyarthi. If you want to know how much I respect Kailash's work and his life, in 2007, and every year since then, I have nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize, and one of these days he's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize because he deserves it. I first met Kailash in 1991. I guess you said you brought him to my office, right, Brian? Tim Ryan. He spoke passionately about the tragedy of child slaves in the carpet industry, children who were beaten and starved, denied their childhood, and forced to live without love or hope for the future. His extraordinary example has inspired my own work in this field as well as the work of so many others in his native India and elsewhere around the world, including many of you in this room. So thank you, Kailash, for your great leadership in the cause of eliminating the worst forms of child labor. And thank you for bringing us together this weekend for this important international conference that focuses on the worst forms of child labor in agriculture. I might also mention, I just found out this morning, of course, no one does this by himself. Kailash's daughter-in-law, Priyanka, has been working very hard to put this together. And Priyanka, thank you. And today is her birthday. Priyanka's birthday. And thank you for mentioning, we have a saying here in the Senate that senators, like me, are a constitutional impediment to the smooth workings of staff. Many times that's very true. but I've been blessed to have a staff person now with me for, well, over 20 years. How many years?
15.
Huh?
15.
Oh, that's just that one episode. For 15 years, and she really does all this work. She travels all over the globe for me, many countries, and she's just, I can't say enough good things about Rosemary Gutierrez, who does all this work on child labor. And she's trained a young man who's come on my staff in the last several years, and he has also taken this up and is also, so I have two people working on this, Rosemary and Tom Buttrey right next to it. Well, I'm very pleased that we'll be focusing specifically on child laborers in the agricultural sector. This is where 60% of the child laborers in the world work. And this problem exists not only in developing countries, but in industrial countries. According to the U.S. National Institute on Occupational Safety and Health, in 2009, here in America, 3,400 children were injured doing farm work. And on average, 113 American youth under the age of 20 die each year in farm-related accidents. We cannot walk away from our obligation to protect these vulnerable children in agriculture. I know from my discussions with farmers throughout my state, and I represent a heavy agriculture state, I know that we can both protect children and ensure the success of family farms. I know you all agree this can be done. Maybe 25 years ago or so, an acquaintance of mine has become a great friend. Marilyn Adams lost her son, little kid. I think maybe he was only maybe 10, 11, 12 years old. Lost his life in a terrible farm accident. So she started an organization to teach farmers about protecting children. And it's been very successful. And it sort of, shows that farmers are willing to do this. Sometimes they don't know what to do. But we need to show them what to do, and we need to be more active in passing national laws and state laws that restrict the worst forms of child labor in agriculture. My recent activism in this regard has been focused on efforts to eradicate the predominant use of child labor in the cocoa industry. And as Kailash mentioned, in 2001, Congressman Engel and I, along with other stakeholders, cocoa industry, chocolate manufacturers, and the governments of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, drafted what is now known as the Harkin Engel Protocol. It's a public-private partnership to attack the issue of the worst forms of child labor on the cocoa farms in 4 African countries, mainly though Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. And again, I want to make it clear at the outset that I've never been against children working. I worked when I was a kid. We came from a very poor family. My mother was an immigrant. My father only went to the 6th grade. So we worked. That's not the problem. It's all right, but kids should be in school first. If they need to do or want to do work after school or when school's not in session, it's fine. And as long as it's not dangerous, life-threatening, health-threatening kind of work. Other than that, that's fine, because kids learn responsibility, learn how to do things when they're young. That's no problem. But you have to draw some lines, and the lines are work that leads to injuries, either immediate or health-wise for long-term, or that prevent dangerous kinds of situations of kids, or work that keeps them out of school. So my investigations in this area have taken me not only to the cocoa plantations of West Africa, but to Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Latin America. But the issue of abusive child labor is too big for any one person whether it's Kailash or me or anyone in this room. That's why the adoption of the ILO Convention 182 in 1999 was such a landmark event, and I was proud to be in Geneva for that with President Bill Clinton. As people in this room know, ILO Convention 182 put the full power and prestige of the ILO and the United Nations into the fight against abusive and exploitive child labor. And I must say, in the 23 years, we have made tremendous progress globally. No, I shouldn't say that's not 23, 1999. That would be 11, 12, 13 years. Sorry. My math is not that good. In the 13 years since that convention was adopted, we have made good progress. But it's been uneven, and the most notable outlier from this has been in agriculture. In recent years, powerful global economic trends have taken us backwards. Those same trends are dragging a new generation of children into abusive labor. And what I'm talking about is in 2008, we experienced a simultaneous global recession around the world. It was especially cruel in its impact on people living in poverty in developing countries. We're still struggling to recover from that. These dire circumstances provide a fertile breeding ground for the worst forms of child labor. Desperate people resort to desperate and degrading measures just to survive, including forcing children into abusive labor. So this conference today could not be more timely and urgent. This weekend, we need to produce an action plan to redouble our commitment to eradicating the exploitation of children. Now again, there'll be a lot of speeches and presentations this weekend, but words and warnings are not enough. We need deeds and action. And it's not enough just to be against child labor. If we're against child labor, then we must be for decent jobs for their parents. We must be for greater access to schooling for every child. It's not enough to say, get the kids out of the cocoa fields or someplace. You must have schools and teachers and books and supplies for these children. We must be for the basic social supports so that vulnerable families don't feel that they have to put their kids to work and keep them out of school. So I'll just briefly outline my own priorities for what I think should be global action. I'll try to be brief. First, we must expand access to quality education. In many places, school fees and related costs effectively close the schoolhouse door to millions of poor children. In many places, especially in rural areas, there simply are no schools. Wealthy nations like the United States and other nations must spend less on military and more on education in developing nations. We need fewer bombs and more books, fewer soldiers, more teachers. Secondly, we must forge stronger partnerships. On that score, I'm heartened by the fact that we have participants this weekend from governments, NGOs, trade unions, farmer organizations, private companies, multi-stakeholder initiatives. We need all of these parties at the table, cooperating as we move forward. I urge the ILO to work with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank to ensure that loans are linked to pledges by governments to increase access to schools and to maintain social safety nets for the poor. Let me repeat that. IMF and World Bank loans must be linked to pledges by the recipient governments that they're going to increase access to schools and maintain a social safety net. I urge the ILO to continue reaching out to sister organizations within the UN to develop joint strategies in this regard. Third, we need to pool our experiences and share our best practices. I was just in Brazil 2 months ago. Terrific program, Brazil's Bolsa Famlia initiative. Under Bolsa Famlia, poor families in Brazil are given a monthly stipend by the government in return for a commitment to keep their children in school. Two things, keep them in school and they have to take them in for regular health checkups, If they do that, and they get signed up, and they sign up and they put the slip in, they get a monthly payment. I like that idea. I think it's a brilliant model, and it could be done around the globe. And these are the kind of things where the IMF and the World Bank, when they're extending loans, should say to the government, you do what Brazil's doing, we'll give you the loan. Link those up. Fourth, we must amplify the voice of tripartism. I applaud all the efforts of employers, workers' organizations to fight child labor, but we must do more. We have to get proactive engagement by businesses and trade unions. Quite simply, businesses can offer a demand-side solution if a business ensures that their supply chains are transparent and accountable to the workers and consumers, then this will lead them to being child-free, child labor-free. They also need to contribute to building schools and wells and paying farmers a living wage. This all will make a huge difference. And it can be used, I believe, as a powerful marketing tool for the business entity so engaged. I think any business that in Europe or anywhere else, America, Canada, wherever, if they have a supply chain coming from a developing country and they are proactive in providing schools and decent standard of living measures for people, I think they can use that to market whatever product they're selling. I think people will be supportive of that. I also challenge my friends in the trade union movement to speak and act even more forcefully in opposing the worst forms of child labor. Now, trade unions have always been outspoken advocates for human and civil rights. Well, there is no more pressing human and civil rights issue than ending the exploitation of children in the workplace. And it's vital that farmers and farm workers are empowered, that through the trade union movement, I believe they can reach out to them to make sure that they understand that they are part of this community and they don't have to put their kids to work in dangerous situations. So, ladies and gentlemen, across the globe, it's time of testing. I think what's being tested under the stress of economic crisis is our commitment to our values, our mutual solidarity, our determination to work together in great causes, including ending the worst forms of child labor. I believe we can and will pass this test. You in this room have already shifted the boundaries of the debate. In the span of just a few years, we have moved the world from denial to awareness and now action. And now let us move from action to abolition, the end of abusive child labor once and for all. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. famously said that the arc of justice, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That's true, but I would add it doesn't bend by itself. It bends because of the actions of great progressive organizations such as the Global March. It bends towards justice because of the actions of people of goodwill, people who are unafraid, who will put their very lives on the line, people in this room like Kailash Satyarthi, people who are really changing the world, one community, one village, one child at a time. So I thank you all for being such passionate, determined, and unstoppable advocates for the eradication of child labor. So have a great conference. I look forward to being here with you off and on during the weekend and hearing about the results that you achieve, and in any way that I or my office can be helpful in any way, please don't hesitate to let me know. Again, welcome, and my deepest heartfelt thanks to each and every one of you for what you're doing to make this a global, not only a global issue, but as I said, to move us to action. Let's start really getting things done. Thank you.